What about organic? Perhaps one of the most common questions I get as a nutrition expert is, Dr. Rand, do I need to do organic? Is it better? Or how do I do it? And what's the lowdown on organic? And I'm going to set you straight because that is what I do, because I deal in real, hard, fast, factual science, right? And if you look at the science, the best science available currently, there are definitely some things we can tell you for sure about organic. So what are they? Number one, we know that if you choose organic, it is definitely better for the environment. It's better for the environment in multiple ways, and this is clearly demonstrated in all sorts of studies. So it's unequivocal, and it helps the environment by decreasing pollution and also conservation of our limited resources. Second thing about organic is if you choose organic, it will definitely decrease your body's exposure to pesticides. Again, countless studies to document this fact. Here's the question, though. You say, Dr. Rand, can you convince me that eating conventional produce and getting exposed to the levels of pesticides in conventional produce, can you prove to me that that has adverse health effects? And the answer is no, because guess what? We don't have the studies to be able to say that for sure, and it's likely that we never will, because now big food is on both sides of the fence, meaning the big food conglomerates own the organic lines now and the non-organic lines, and so it makes it unlikely that we'll ever get those studies. My hunch, and this is a hunch, is if we had the studies, that we may see that there is a slight increase in health risk, although I don't think it would be anything near major, in conventional foods versus organic. But again, that's my personal hunch, and again, I don't think it would be anything real significant. The third thing is, are they more nutritious? If you look at the science, here's what we see. There are plenty of studies that show that, organic foods are no more nutritious, and plenty of studies that show that organic foods are more nutritious. If you look at the totality of the studies, it tips slightly in favor, the scale tips slightly in favor that organic foods are a bit more nutritious. They generally do have higher concentrations of minerals, and in limited studies, we have the fact that there's certain particular vitamins or certain particular phytochemicals that may be more abundant in the organic versus the conventional varieties. I think the point here is that people need to recognize that, at least when we're talking about produce, fruits and vegetables, that conventional are incredibly healthy, and we're probably talking about splitting hairs and the difference nutrition-wise between organic produce and conventional produce. And we have way more people in this country dying from not eating enough fruits and vegetables than we do having exposure to pesticides. So you need to have, proper perspective there. And the next thing is, what about taste? Is there any solid scientific evidence that organic foods taste better? Guess what? It's a complete wash. In blinded scientific taste tests, for every one study that shows that organic foods taste better, there is another one to match it that shows that conventional foods do. So that one is completely a wash. So ultimately, I think the choice about whether to go organic or not boils down to two issues. It boils down to your personal feelings about the environment and your, maybe more so than that, your pocketbook. Because we do know that organic foods are at this time more expensive, typically about 20% more. And I will leave you with a couple of important caveats to help you sort of in your decision-making tree of should I do organic or not. And that is that please understand that children, because they consume more calories per unit body mass, and because their cells are rapidly dividing, they are definitely at more risk of adverse effects of pesticides if indeed risks do exist. And so I would tell any parent who has a child that has restrictive eating behavior, for example, a mom may say to me, Dr. Ann, the only fruit my child will eat is apples. And I say, well, you know what? You need to be giving them apples every single solitary day, like maybe 2 or 3 times a day. And if that's the case, I would say, please get organic. And the reason is this. It's because if there is going to be an adverse effect, it's going to be much more apt to occur as a result of frequent, prolonged exposure. That's what's going to really up the ante, that a bad outcome could indeed take place. So keep that in mind. The other thing that comes to mind is milk. Some kids drink milk 5 times a day. That is frequent exposure. I'm a huge advocate of telling families, despite their budget, make it work. Buy organic milk. And lastly, there's a wonderful independent scientific body called the Environmental Working Group, EWG, and they do independent reviews of, they look at all the studies that the USDA does and the EPA does, that analyzes pesticide loads, pesticide concentrations in our foods, and they publish this information for the consumer. And they have what is known as their Dirty Dozen list. And they've reviewed over 100,000 studies to come up with these lists. And the Dirty Dozen list is the list of the 12 most contaminated pieces of produce. And you can go to ewg.org, and download for free their wonderful little wallet-sized card. I keep it in my wallet because it's hard to keep them memorized, of what are the Dirty Dozen. And the other thing they do is they also provide for you the cleanest dozen. And these are the cleanest fruits and vegetables, the ones with the least, typically with the least pesticides. And if your concern then is pesticide exposure, there would be no reason to buy those particular fruits and vegetables in the organic variety. Again, it's still going to help the environment, but if your worry is pesticides, no need to buy those in organic because it's just simply not necessary. So I hope this clarifies things for you on the organic front. And until next time, this is Dr. Ann for ICU. Remember, you are the only one that can make you healthy, so please take charge of your health.